Hey, how's it going, guys? So today I want to talk about the industry as it revolves around the practitioners that are entering this field and their ability to grow in it as a maybe an independent consultant, not necessarily through an organization. And I know I did an episode talking about name on the door syndrome where I mentioned how a lot of practitioners graduate and they go straight into making an LLC, starting their own business, which is fine. Obviously, I did it, and many years later, it became something and it's still growing. But the reason I want to bring this up, I was watching a video and I'm talk about a specific person. His name is John Morgan from the law firm Morgan and Morgan. And the video was about a billionaire talking amongst other people who obviously aren't billionaires. It was interesting. So the biggest takeaway I got from it was not necessarily the insight he was given and the things he believes in, but more so, how does a law firm actually work? Now, I actually have a client who is a lawyer and he's an athlete, but he's also a lawyer by trade. And I asked him, what was your trajectory once you graduated with your law degree? And he said, I worked for a law firm for a few years until he got his footing, learned more about the industry. And then he ended up doing things on his own, but mostly because he's trying to make it to the Olympics. But that's a different trajectory. I have other people I know that are lawyers who are actually still working for that firm and they're getting paid a pretty good salary. And I think this is where we should borrow from it to bring this full circle. Why I brought up Morgan and Morgan, because it's considered one of the largest law firms in the world. Now, they deal with personal injury law, but the premise is they have thousands of employees, numerous locations across the country. And this is, I think, the issue with the sports psychology world is most practitioners, if they're not automatically working for an organization like a team, a college, or whatever it may be, they go into the private sector to some degree. But the misconception is they're not really making money. And I'm not saying that they are not making money as in no money at all, but I'm talking about sustainable living because the market share is small and most of the market share goes to the bigger organizations, the schools, and things like that. So if you're starting your own LLC or your own registered business, then more than likely you're competing with those likes. And all honesty, from a guy who's been at this for over a decade and a half, you're probably not competing very well with them. Not because you're not knowledgeable. I'm sure you know your stuff, but business is not just about that. There's a lot of aspects of business that you're probably not getting from your degree programs. And I've talked about it here. So you got some from me, but obviously I got a lot I could share on that and that can be fit into a 15-minute video or less. But basically, I think the model that we look at for the mental performance industry should take from law. Because I'll use my own company, Mind Body One. I've had a group of people for the last 4 months. I call them Mentorns. And I don't like to say intern because intern doesn't really describe what this program is. This program has put them in real life situations. They've been able to meet police chiefs, captains, colonels, things of that nature. So they've gotten real life, real deal experience. But the problem is I still see some of them may strive for other endeavors because that's just what life's about, right? You want to make your own lane. But that may be disadvantageous, right? Because if you're working under Mind Body One, you essentially inherit everything we've done. I've worked with the world's best performers from Dustin Poirier, the US military, law enforcement agencies, billion-dollar corporations. So by proxy, if you have this brand on your shirt, you've done that too. Now, it doesn't mean you've actually done it, but you're part of the agency. Because if you work for a company, say like Google or Apple, guess what? The prestige that comes with that company becomes part of what you're doing too. Now, obviously, if you're at the lower levels, maybe not so much, but if you're at the corporate level or something that contributes to those type of projects, you can definitely put that on your resume. So this is why I think the law firm example works because you need to really build your credentials, but also get the ability to be put into positions where you can build. Because let's say you do have your own practice, you call it Mental Performance 101 LLC. I'm just using a random name. You have a few clients that you charge, let's say 60, 70, maybe $100 a session. You charge them in packages of 4 to 5 sessions up front. So you're talking about $400 to $500 at max for 3 to 4 clients. So maybe you're making $1,500 a month. Nothing to scoff at, right? I always say that's nothing to scoff at. But $1,500 times 12, you're talking about $18,000, give or take. So it's not a livable wage by any means. You're more than likely you're working another gig, maybe in the field, maybe out the field. These are clients on the side, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm in the business of making money and doing it through all things performance, mental performance, making the performer, athlete, military, business owner better. I'm Morgan and Morgan. Now, obviously, I'm not making billions yet. But the point is, why not join something that has more potential to be more, because there's a little bit of ego and hubris involved into it. We got to check our biases and admit that, right? Because if I'm a mental coach and my job is to work with a performer is to help them perform better, I'm doing the same thing with you with these Industry Pathology series. So you need to know that you're limiting yourself, because I've had people who've inquired about working with me and I've given them potential opportunities, but they had to get written off because they were overzealous and saying, hey, I demand this and that. And it's like, you're not in a position to demand anything with me. No. You haven't done what I've done. Things I was doing back in 2007, 2008. Most of you were either in elementary school or at max, maybe middle school for the up and comers. And to those who are my age or older, respect, you're doing your own thing. But the things we were building with Mind by the One, or I was building, set the precedent of now that we're making money and growing, that had to be done first. So you're in no position to argue or bargain. But this is where the conflict is, because everyone wants to be their own boss. I remember somebody actually asked me, hey, Nick, it must be great being your own boss. You make your own schedule. You work when you want. You answer to no one. And I laughed and said, actually, yes, I make my own schedule, but I probably work more hours in a week than most average Americans. I definitely answer to someone, because if I have a contract with a large sheriff's office, a billion-dollar corporation, do you think they're just going to say, here's money, Nick? No. Granted, these are good gigs, good contracts, but I definitely answer to someone. And it definitely comes to me. I have people work under me. If they're not on point, they're not telling them, they're telling me. And guess who has to fix it? Me. So you technically trade in one boss when you're doing a typical 9-to-5 for many bosses. And that's just the nature of the game. Now, if you're ready for that and be an entrepreneur, fine. But it's not going to be every day, especially in this industry, since you're so scarce and how business works and there's a monopoly on the industry, because most of the organizations that are getting bigger contracts, $1 million contracts like the ones that work with the military or pro athletes, they're not going to be a person who just got out of their master's degree program. That's just not going to be so. So the full circle point of all of this is, why are you not looking to, one, get mentorship with someone that has a higher caliber? It doesn't have to be me, obviously, but I'm very open book. I brought on 8 people, only 5 remain. So you do the math. And as the words of Jay-Z, it ain't for everyone. And the reason I said it is because how I formulated my mentorship was a point of giving them access on how to grow in this industry. And a lot of them, I think, had this misconception of, oh, we're going to do sessions, we're going to work with athletes, yada, yada, yada. And they have done that. But they think that was all that was going to be. And I started giving them work that didn't look nothing like a one-on-one consult, and it required like more of the intangible stuff or more of the creating stuff or brokering stuff. Some of them proposed things and did great jobs, and they even got money for it. I did competitions amongst them where they got $100 for literally coming up with ideas that we implemented in real scenarios. You're not getting that much places. But the point is, if it doesn't look the way they thought it was, they get kind of dissuaded to do it. But that's the problem. We need to be like Morgan and Morgan. So if we have more organizations like myself and people similar who have the ability to scale and grow, we need to pick up people who can run different aspects of the business. So one, they get the knowledge base, get the experience, but they also can be a part of something that can really make them make money, but it's not so divided, because it's like a scene from the movie A Beautiful Mind. If you're familiar with that movie, there was a scene where John Nash, the main character, who was a world-renowned mathematician, rest in peace, he died, I think, in 2015, so about 10 years ago. He had a theory where he said the equilibrium of everyone going for one thing at once, this secluded the outermost parts of that. So in the movie, I think they used something that probably didn't happen in real life, but basically it was a blonde girl that they all wanted to date. He said, if we all go for her, we all get rejected because she gets overwhelmed. And if we go for her friends afterward, we won't get her because they're not going to want to be sloppy seconds. So basically, we divide it up as we're going to go for her here and the other ones go for the friends. Now, that's what I'm saying with this. Instead of everyone trying to make their own LLC, because that's kind of like the quintessential thing that people do. They graduate from their master's program in sports psych. They make cliche mental performance name .LLC. They're not making any money, not taking on any clients. If they are, it's little to none. I've talked to these people directly and they've DM'd me. It's getting old now. Granted, there's a lane there, but if you're willing to put in the work, 5 to 10 years of it, let's go. But you don't want to hear that though. There's no shame in working for somebody else, especially if they can get you further. I worked for other people for years while still building Mind Body One. Now, the thing is, I wasn't afraid to put on their shirts and do their bidding because guess what? It made me better. It got me in lanes that I would never been. I worked with some of the world's best performers because of it. But you got to let your ego go and drop the hubris. So this is really towards more so the up and comers for the most part, because if you're already in a lane, keep doing what you're doing. If you're working for an organization, a college, whatever, a pro team, keep doing what you're doing. But for the up and comers who have yet to find their way, reach out to people like myself and understand there's no shame in that, and swallow your pride, because if it means that you make $100 here and there and call it yours, great. But it's like Shark Tank. Would you rather have 100% of zero or a decent percent of something that's really going to grow? You do not have to be the name on the door. Like I said on the other episode, name on the door syndrome, you don't have to be that. But it's up to you to see, is this an opportunity where I can really grow and learn? That's the main takeaway, because the more you can take and learn from it, the better practitioner you'll be. That makes your stock and value better, because that's how I got where I'm at. I've done so much in so different ways that it makes it hard for you to say no. That's what it's all about. Unique sales proposition, value positioning. That's how you get to a place where it really matters. So take it from the book of law, find a firm, in this case, a company where you can really learn, grow, make money. That's the biggest takeaway. I want you to make money. Some reason we think we should make money, or they look at it as a weird thing, but no, you need to make money to live, and you need to do it doing the craft that you spent 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, or maybe $100,000 to get that degree. It's a messed up industry, and I always will keep criticizing it, that you spend all this money, be told what to do, told how to think, but yet it's not going to set you up to actually thrive. So you can keep listening to that, because the good saying is, you do what you always done, you get what you always got. So it's up to you to keep doing the same thing. That's my pathology. Have a great week.